Have you ever found yourself shouting at another driver in traffic or firing off an angry email you immediately regretted? That sudden surge of emotion that takes over, making your heart race, your palms sweat, and your judgment disappear, is something we all experience. It's in these moments that our reactions, not the events themselves, often become the real problem. We've all been there, caught off guard by our own emotions, left wondering why we can't just stay calm when it matters most. But what if I told you there's an ancient philosophy, tested by time and practiced by some of history's greatest minds, that offers a clear path to mastering these reactions? This isn't about suppressing how you feel. It's about understanding why you feel it and learning how to respond instead of react. Stoicism, a school of thought that dates back over 2,000 years, provides exactly that, a practical toolkit for emotional resilience. Rooted in the idea that we can't control what happens to us, but we can always control how we respond, Stoicism shifts the focus from external chaos to inner strength. It teaches us to pause, reflect, and choose our actions deliberately rather than being swept away by impulses. And in today's fast-paced, often overwhelming world, these lessons are more relevant than ever. Whether you're dealing with stress at work, tension in relationships, or just the daily frustrations of modern life, the principles of Stoicism offer a way to reclaim your peace and power. In this video, we're exploring 25 Stoic lessons specifically designed to remove emotional reactivity and help you cultivate unshakable calm. Each lesson is a step toward greater self-mastery, drawing on the wisdom of philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. You'll learn how to reframe challenges, practice mindfulness in moments of tension, and build emotional resilience that lasts. This isn't about becoming emotionless, it's about becoming emotionally intelligent. So if you're ready to transform the way you handle stress, conflict, and uncertainty, you're in the right place. Let's begin this journey together. The very first step, and arguably the most vital, is to understand what the ancient Stoics called the dichotomy of control. This is the cornerstone of the entire philosophy, the lens through which every single event in your life should be viewed. It's a simple but profound sorting mechanism for your entire existence. Here's how it works. Everything in the universe can be divided into two categories: things that are within our complete control and things that are not. On one side, the things we control are surprisingly few, but they are everything. They are our own judgments, our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, and ultimately, the actions we choose to take. In short, what we control is our inner world, our mind, and our will. On the other side, the list of things we do not control is vast. It includes the weather, the past, the traffic, the economy, what other people say or think about us, whether we get a promotion, and even our own health and reputation to a large extent. We can influence these things, of course, but we cannot command them. They are ultimately external, subject to countless other factors and variables. The source of nearly all our emotional turmoil, anxiety, and frustration comes from blurring this line. We exhaust ourselves trying to command the weather, or we are devastated when a person we cannot control holds an opinion we don't like. We white-knuckle the steering wheel in a traffic jam as if our anger could magically clear the road, investing our emotional energy in a situation where we have zero control. The immense power of this lesson lies in consciously applying this filter the moment something triggers you. Let's say you receive some harsh criticism at work. Your initial reactive impulse might be to feel insulted, defensive, and angry. The Stoic pause involves asking yourself, is this person's opinion within my control? The answer is no, it is an external event. What is within my control, my judgment of their criticism? Is there any truth to it that I can use to improve? My chosen response, do I react with a sharp email or do I respond with thoughtful consideration? By shifting your focus entirely to your own judgments and actions, you drain the situation of its emotional charge. The criticism becomes mere data, not a personal attack. You are no longer a victim of it, you are an interpreter of it. This practice doesn't make you passive or indifferent. On the contrary, it makes you incredibly effective. Instead of wasting energy fretting over the traffic jam you can't change, you focus your control on how you use that time, perhaps by listening to an audiobook or practicing a moment of mindfulness. You stop trying to force people to like you and instead focus on controlling your own character, on being someone who is kind and virtuous regardless of the approval you receive. This is how the dichotomy of control becomes a tool for profound peace and unparalleled personal agency. It is the first and most important step in removing emotional reactivity because it tells you exactly where your power truly begins and ends. Now, if the dichotomy of control is about where to place your focus, the second lesson is about how to strengthen that focus against life's inevitable shocks and setbacks. This practice is known as negative visualization, or by its Latin name, premeditatio malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. At first glance, this might sound pessimistic or even morbid. Why would you deliberately imagine things going wrong? But this is a profound misunderstanding of its purpose. The goal is not to dwell on misery or attract bad things to you. It's exactly the opposite. It is a mental vaccine against anxiety and a powerful tool to ignite genuine gratitude. Think of it like this: your mind has a natural negativity bias. It's constantly scanning for potential threats, a leftover survival mechanism from our ancient ancestors. This often manifests as a low-grade background anxiety about the future. What if I lose my job? What if my partner leaves me? What if I get sick? We try to suppress these thoughts, to push them away because they are uncomfortable. But in doing so, we give them more power. They become shadowy monsters lurking in the corners of our mind that we're too afraid to look at directly. Negative visualization invites you to turn on the light and look the monster in the eye. It is the disciplined practice of consciously and rationally imagining the worst-case scenario, not to fear it, but to demystify it and prepare for it. The Stoics would regularly set aside time to visualize the loss of their possessions, their status, their health, and even their loved ones. Seneca, a wealthy and powerful man, would practice living in poverty, sleeping on the hard floor and eating meager meals. He wasn't punishing himself, he was proving to himself that even if he lost everything, he would be okay. He was building resilience by realizing that his tranquility did not depend on his external circumstances. Here's how you can apply this today. Let's take a common fear: losing your job. Instead of letting that fear haunt you as an undefined, terrifying possibility, sit down and walk through it deliberately. Imagine the conversation with your boss. Imagine packing up your desk. Then take it a step further. What would you do next? You would update your resume. You would reach out to your network. You might have to cut back on expenses temporarily. You would find another job, perhaps even a better one. By walking through the steps, you realize that even this worst-case scenario is not a life-ending catastrophe. It is a manageable challenge. You've just stripped it of its terrifying power and replaced anxiety with a practical, mental contingency plan. The other incredible benefit of this practice is its ability to generate profound appreciation for what you have right now. By mentally removing the people and things you love, even for just a moment, you see them with fresh eyes. Imagine truly contemplating life without your partner before you say good night, or without your health before you go for a run. This isn't morbid, it's a reset button for taking things for granted. Suddenly, that same partner, that same healthy body, becomes a gift you get to experience today. Your morning coffee isn't just a routine, it's a pleasure you are fortunate to enjoy. This practice inoculates you against the human tendency to adapt to good fortune and always want more. It transforms ordinary life into a source of constant, quiet joy. It's not about expecting the worst to happen. It's about understanding that even if it did, you have the inner resources to handle it, and that right now, in this moment, you are incredibly fortunate. After learning to sort what we can control from what we can't, and after mentally preparing for potential hardships, we come to a third practice that is perhaps the most humbling and liberating of them all. This is the Stoic exercise known as the view from above. It is a powerful technique of perspective shifting, designed to instantly shrink our problems down to their true size by viewing them from a vast, almost cosmic vantage point. When you are in the middle of a stressful situation, a heated argument, a looming deadline, a moment of social anxiety, your field of vision narrows, the problem expands to fill your entire mental world. It feels all-consuming, urgent, and massive. The view from above is the conscious decision to break that frame. It asks you to mentally zoom out, far beyond the confines of the room, the city, or even the planet, to see your life as a single, tiny point in the immensity of space and time. Close your eyes for a moment and try it. Imagine your current worry. Now pull your perspective upward. See yourself in the room, then see the building from above, then the neighborhood, the city. Keep going. See your country from the edge of the atmosphere, a beautiful mosaic of green and blue and brown. See the entire earth, a solitary, brilliant marble hanging in the profound blackness of space. From here, can you even see the problem? Can you pinpoint the office where you're stressed or the home where an argument took place? The sheer scale makes it impossible. Now shift to time, that project deadline that feels like a life or death situation next week. Where does it sit on a timeline of human history? Consider that humans have been around for hundreds of thousands of years. Civilizations have risen and fallen. Great empires that believed they were the center of the universe are now dust and archaeological sites. Your life and everything in it is a single brief flicker in this long, long story. This isn't meant to make you feel insignificant, but to make your problems feel manageable. The anxiety that feels so unique and overwhelming to you is a variation of a feeling experienced by countless people throughout history. Your specific circumstance is new, but the emotion is ancient. This practice is a direct antidote to what we might call ego inflation, the mistaken belief that our personal dramas are the central events of the universe. The Stoics understood that this self-importance is a primary source of our suffering. By regularly engaging in the view from above, we recalibrate our sense of proportion. The rude comment from a colleague, the minor embarrassment, the traffic ticket, these things are not negated, but they are placed in their proper context. They are small stones in a very large river. You can use this tool in any moment of tension. Stuck in a long, frustrating line at the store, zoom out. You are one person in one store, on one street, on one planet among billions, in a galaxy among trillions. The few minutes of delay become utterly trivial against that backdrop. Fuming over a perceived slight in a meeting, zoom out. That meeting is 1 hour in your life, which is one life in the history of your company, which is one company in the economic landscape of a century. The emotional charge dissipates, replaced by a calm, almost amused detachment. This elevated perspective doesn't promote apathy, it creates clarity. It allows you to re-engage with your problems, but from a place of calm strength rather than reactive panic. The issue hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. It is no longer a monster, it's a manageable task. You can address what needs to be addressed without the suffocating weight of emotional overwhelm. The view from above is the ultimate reminder that while your actions are yours to control, their importance is always relative. This mental shift grants you the freedom to focus your energy not on the dramas of the moment, but on the things that truly matter in the long run: your character, your virtue, and your peace of mind. So far, we've learned to sort what we can control, to mentally prepare for hardship, and to view our problems from a cosmic perspective to shrink them down to size. These are powerful tools for creating distance between an event and your reaction. But what if you could go beyond mere acceptance? What if you could not just tolerate what happens to you, but actually love it? This brings us to the fourth and perhaps most radical Stoic lesson, Amor Fati. This Latin phrase translates to a love of one's fate, and it is the ultimate reframe. It's the decision to embrace every single thing that happens, the good, the bad, the embarrassing, the painful, not as a setback, but as essential fuel for your growth and a necessary part of your story. This isn't about passive resignation or pretending that something doesn't hurt. It's an active, courageous embrace. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, born a slave, embodied this. He didn't just accept his enslavement, he saw it as the very thing that introduced him to philosophy, which became his path to true freedom. He famously said, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens, then you will be happy." This is the heart of Amor Fati. You drop the exhausting struggle against reality. You stop arguing with what is. Instead, you welcome it as your teacher. Consider the incredible story of Nelson Mandela. He was sentenced to life in prison, a fate that would break most people. For 27 years, he endured harsh conditions and isolation. Yet he did not merely endure his fate, he loved it. He saw it not as a tragedy, but as a necessary crucible. In his autobiography, he wrote that prison was where he learned true patience, leadership, and the depth of his own resolve. He emerged not with bitterness, but with a profound strength and a vision for reconciliation that transformed a nation. He took the very thing meant to destroy him and used it to become an icon of peace. That is Amor Fati in action. On a more personal level, think about Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who ruled the Roman Empire during plague, war, and constant political intrigue. His private journal, now known as Meditations, is filled with reminders to love the fate he was given. He wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." He saw every obstacle, every difficult person, every moment of pain as logs thrown on his inner fire. Each one, however unpleasant, was fuel to make his character burn brighter and stronger. He didn't have the luxury of waiting for calm, easy days to practice virtue. He had to find a way to love the chaos because it was the only material he had to work with. How do we practice this in our own, less dramatic lives? It starts with a simple change in your internal dialogue. When something frustrating happens, your flight is cancelled, you get a rejection, you make a mistake, instead of groaning, "Why me?" or "This is terrible," you train yourself to ask a different question. What can this make of me? How is this necessary for my growth? A cancelled flight becomes an unexpected gift of quiet hours to read or rest. A professional rejection becomes a redirection toward an opportunity that's a better fit. A personal mistake becomes a humbling, unforgettable lesson in what not to do next time. This mindset transforms you from a victim of circumstances into an alchemist of your own experience. You begin to see that the perfect, smooth, easy life you might have imagined would have left you weak and unprepared. The bumps and bruises are what give you traction and strength. Amor Fati is the deep understanding that your character is not built in times of comfort and ease. It is forged in the challenges you are given. To love your fate is to fall in love with the person you are becoming, and to recognize that every single event, especially the difficult ones, are the essential tools crafting that stronger, wiser, more resilient you. It's one thing to intellectually understand that we can handle difficulty, but it's another thing entirely to have that knowledge etched into your very bones through direct experience. This is the profound purpose behind the fifth Stoic practice, voluntarily experiencing discomfort, often called the practice of misfortune or voluntary hardship. Seneca powerfully advised this, writing, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?' This isn't about self-punishment or seeking out suffering for its own sake. It is a targeted, strategic exercise in building resilience. Think of it as emotional and mental weightlifting. You wouldn't wait until you had to carry a heavy piece of furniture to start building your physical strength. You'd go to the gym regularly to prepare your muscles. In the same way, the practice of misfortune is a gym for your mind and spirit. By deliberately choosing small, manageable hardships, you are proving to your deepest self that you are capable of enduring far more than you thought. You are building a reservoir of inner confidence that you can draw from when real, unexpected hardship strikes. The forms this practice can take are simple and accessible. It could be taking a cold shower instead of a warm one, not for some purported health benefit, but for the mental discipline of standing under that cold water and choosing to breathe calmly instead of panic. It could be skipping a meal and fasting for a day, not for a diet, but to remind yourself that you can function perfectly well with a little less. It could be walking instead of driving, or sleeping on a firmer surface for a night, or even just turning off the entertainment and sitting in silence for an hour. The specific act is less important than the intention behind it, to willingly step into a minor discomfort and prove your mastery over it. The psychological effect is transformative. When you voluntarily endure a cold shower, you are not just getting clean, you are having a conversation with the part of your brain that screams, "This is terrible." Avoid this, and you are responding calmly and firmly. "I see the sensation, it is uncomfortable, but it is not an emergency. I am safe, I can handle this." This repeated dialogue rewires your relationship with discomfort. You break the automatic chain that links physical unease with emotional panic. The next time life throws an involuntary hardship your way, a power outage, a financial pinch, a stressful situation at work, your mind doesn't immediately jump to catastrophe. It has a reference point. It remembers, this feeling is familiar. I handled the cold water. I handled hunger. I can handle this too. This practice serves as a powerful antidote to the modern expectation of constant comfort and convenience. We live in a world designed to eliminate every possible friction, which paradoxically makes us more fragile. When the smallest inconvenience, a slow Wi-Fi connection, a long line at the coffee shop, can trigger a disproportionate outburst of frustration, it's a sign that our tolerance for adversity has atrophied. Voluntary hardship is the medicine for this. It reintroduces a healthy amount of friction into our lives, not to make us miserable, but to make us strong. It teaches us that happiness and peace do not depend on everything being easy. A student of the Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus once asked why they should willingly endure hardship when philosophy is supposed to lead to a good life. Rufus replied that practicing with small difficulties prepares us for larger ones, just as athletes train harder in practice than they will ever face in a match, so that the actual competition feels easy by comparison. By making friends with misfortune on your own terms, you strip the unknown of its power to terrify you. You move through the world with a quiet, unshakable knowledge that you are resilient, not because you've read it in a book, but because you've lived it, one cold shower and one skipped meal at a time. This deep-seated confidence is the foundation that prevents reactive panic, allowing you to meet life's inevitable challenges not with fear, but with calm, capable resolve. Imagine for a moment that your mind is a castle gate, and every single thought, sensation, and piece of information that comes your way is a messenger arriving at that gate. Some messengers bring truthful news, others are liars, exaggerators, or panic mongers. The sixth Stoic lesson, known as the Discipline of Assent, is the practice of being the vigilant gatekeeper of your own mind. It is the crucial pause between the arrival of a powerful impression and your decision to either welcome it in as truth or to send it away as a deception. This is where emotional reactivity is stopped at the door. The Stoics believed that we are not disturbed by events themselves, but by the judgments we assent to about those events. An impression is the initial, raw data that hits your senses, a certain tone in someone's voice, a terse email from your boss, a sudden pain in your side. This impression comes bundled with an initial, often visceral, interpretation. The discipline of assent is the conscious act of withholding your agreement from that initial interpretation until you have had a chance to examine it rationally. You are not stopping the impression from arriving, you are simply refusing to automatically roll out the red carpet for it. Let's take a concrete example. You're at work and a colleague you usually chat with walks right past you without saying a word. The initial impression, the raw data, is simply that a person walked by silently. But the immediate, automatic judgment that your mind wants to assent to might be, she's ignoring me, she's angry with me, I must have done something wrong. If you grant that judgment immediate assent, you have just welcomed anxiety, self-doubt, and distraction into your mental castle. Your heart rate might increase, your mood sours, and you spend the next hour obsessing over what you could have possibly done. The Stoic gatekeeper, however, intercepts that messenger at the gate. They see the impression and say, "Hold on, let me examine this." They then apply reason. Is it true that she is angry with me? I have no evidence for that. There are a dozen other possible explanations. Perhaps she's late for a meeting and didn't see me. Maybe she's deeply preoccupied with a personal problem. It's even possible she's just having a bad day. By questioning the initial impression, you break its spell. You realize that you have a choice. You can choose to assent to a more rational and far less distressing interpretation. Her behavior is outside my control and its meaning is unclear. I will not invent a story that causes me suffering. I will proceed with my day until I have actual evidence to consider. This discipline is incredibly powerful when receiving potentially bad news. You get a text that just says, "We need to talk." The immediate impression can feel like a verdict, triggering a flood of fear and worst-case scenarios. The practiced Stoic pauses that cascade. They assent only to the fact of the text itself, a string of words on a screen. They refuse to assent to the catastrophic narrative their mind wants to create. They might say to themselves, "I have been given a request for a conversation. That is all I know. I will not write the script for that conversation in advance with dread and fear. I will wait, I will prepare myself to listen calmly, and I will respond virtuously when the time comes." This small gap of non-assent is the difference between spending hours in agonizing anxiety and maintaining a state of calm preparedness. Gossip is another area where this discipline is a superpower. When someone shares a juicy, negative story about a mutual acquaintance, the initial impression can be compelling and enticing. It asks for your assent, your agreement that this story is true and worthy of your emotional energy and judgment. The undisciplined mind immediately agrees, absorbing the drama and passing it along. The Stoic gatekeeper pauses. They ask, "Is this information true? Is it helpful? Is it necessary for me to form this judgment? Does assenting to this story improve my character or my peace of mind?" By withholding immediate assent, you protect your mind from being cluttered with negativity, and you avoid contributing to harm. You choose not to let someone else's unverified narrative become your reality. Epictetus, who taught this concept relentlessly, said, "Don't let the force of an impression when it first hits you knock you off your feet. Just say to it, 'Hold on a moment, let me see who you are and what you represent. Let me put you to the test.'" This is the essence of the practice. It is not suppression, it is interrogation. You are not trying to feel nothing. You are trying to ensure that what you feel is based on truth, not on a knee-jerk reaction to a misleading first draft written by your emotions. Every time you successfully pause and question an impression, you strengthen your gatekeeper. You build the mental muscle of discernment, which allows you to navigate the world with clarity and purpose, rather than being tossed around by every wind of circumstance and every dramatic messenger that arrives at your gate. This powerful Stoic principle flips the entire script on how we perceive difficulty. Up to this point, we've been building practices that help us accept and endure what life throws our way. But the obstacle is the way, takes us from a defensive stance to an offensive one. It transforms the very thing blocking your path from a problem to be lamented into the raw material for your solution. The obstacle is no longer something in your way, it is the way forward. The phrase is a modern interpretation of a core idea expressed by Marcus Aurelius when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. This isn't just optimistic thinking, it's a fundamental reorientation of perception. A reactive mind sees a barrier and thinks, "This is unfair. Why is this happening to me? I must go around or give up." A proactive, stoic mind sees the same barrier and asks, "How can I use this? What does this make possible that wasn't possible before?" History is filled with stunning examples of this principle in action. Consider Thomas Edison's approach to inventing the light bulb. He didn't experience one single failure. He famously found 10,000 ways that didn't work. A reactive person would have seen each failed filament material as a devastating setback, a reason to quit. Edison, however, reportedly reframed each attempt not as a failure, but as a successful discovery of what wouldn't work, which inexorably narrowed the path to what would. The obstacle, the repeated failure, wasn't blocking his way. It was the way to ultimate success. He was using the very friction of the problem to generate the heat needed for a breakthrough. This mindset isn't confined to the history books. It's the lifeblood of modern innovation and personal triumph. Look at the story of the entrepreneur Sarah Blakely, who founded Spanx with just $5,000. She faced countless obstacles. She had no background in fashion or business. Manufacturers repeatedly hung up on her, and large retailers initially dismissed her product. A reactive response would have been to take each rejection personally and quit. Instead, she used each no as feedback. She realized the obstacle of manufacturers not taking her seriously meant she had to learn about patenting herself. The obstacle of retailers not giving her a meeting meant she had to find a creative way to get her product into the hands of a buyer's daughter. Every single barrier became a puzzle piece that, when solved, actually built her business in a stronger, more resilient way. She didn't avoid the obstacles, she embraced them as her curriculum. So how do we apply this in our own everyday lives? It starts with a simple but powerful shift in language. When you encounter a problem, stop saying, "I have to do this despite this obstacle," and start asking, "How can I do this through this obstacle? How can I use this very thing to my advantage?" Imagine you're giving a crucial presentation and the power goes out, killing your slide deck. The reactive response is panic, frustration, and a feeling that your presentation is ruined. The obstacle is the way response is to immediately reframe. The power outage has forced your audience to put away their distractions and focus entirely on you. It has made your presentation more intimate and personal. The obstacle no slides has become the way a more powerful human connection. You now have an opportunity to tell a story and engage with them directly in a way your slides might have prevented. Or perhaps you're working on a project and a key team member quits. The reactive mind sees a catastrophic delay and a skills gap that can't be filled. The proactive mind sees an opportunity. This obstacle forces you to cross-train other team members, deepening the overall skill set of the group. It might force you to simplify the project, stripping it down to its most essential, brilliant components. The departure of one person becomes the way to build a more robust and versatile team. This philosophy encourages us to stop seeing the world in terms of good luck and bad luck, and to start seeing only feedback and opportunities for action. The obstacle is a constant, it is guaranteed. What is variable is our response. Will we be like water, which when it meets a rock in its path doesn't stop and complain? It simply finds a way to flow around, over or under it, and in doing so, often creates a beautiful new landscape in the process. The obstacle is not your enemy. It is your guide, your teacher, and the very substance with which you will build your character and your success. The path to your goal was never meant to be clear and easy. The obstacles are not detours from the path, they are the paving stones that form it. Now, while the previous lessons have focused primarily on our internal world and our response to events, Stoicism also offers a profound and beautiful lesson on how we relate to everyone and everything around us. This is the concept of Sympatheia, a Greek word that translates to sympathy, but carries a much deeper meaning of interconnectedness, mutual interdependence, and a shared belonging to a single, universal system. It's the understanding that we are not isolated individuals competing in a hostile world, but rather integral threads in a vast, living tapestry. Recognizing this interconnectedness is a powerful antidote to the isolation, judgment, and anger that so often fuel our emotional reactivity. The Stoics saw the entire cosmos as a single, rational, living entity, a kind of world soul or logos. They believed that everything in it, from the stars in the sky to the people in your life, is woven together in a complex web of cause and effect. To harm another person or to rage against them is therefore not just a personal conflict. It is like a hand attempting to strike the foot. It is a failure to understand that the foot is a part of the same body. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this in his meditations, writing, "What injures the hive injures the bee. Your well-being is not separate from the well-being of the whole." When you act against the whole, you ultimately act against yourself. This philosophical view has a very practical, immediate application in cooling down our reactive emotions during conflict. When someone cuts you off in traffic, your initial animal brain reaction is to see them as an anonymous threat, an obstacle, a malicious other who has personally wronged you. This perception instantly triggers anger, but Sympatheia asks you to pause that reaction and reframe who that person is. They are not just a bad driver, they are a human being, a part of your universal community. They might be a parent rushing to a sick child's school, a worker terrified of being late for a job they can't afford to lose, or simply someone who made a clumsy mistake in a moment of distraction, just as you have done countless times before. This isn't about making excuses for poor behavior. It's about understanding its context by seeing them as a flawed, stressed, and struggling part of the same whole that you belong to. The personal sting of their action is removed. Your anger, which requires a personal villain to fuel it, simply has nowhere to land and begins to dissipate. We can take this a step further with a concept from modern psychology that the Stoics would have deeply appreciated: the fundamental attribution error. This is our natural tendency to explain other people's bad behavior by their character. They're a jerk, while explaining our own identical behavior by our circumstances. I'm having a terrible day. Sympatheia is the conscious correction of this error. It forces us to grant others the same generous assumption of circumstances that we automatically grant ourselves. That colleague who snapped at you in a meeting isn't inherently rude. They're likely under immense pressure you know nothing about. The customer service representative who seems unhelpful isn't lazy. They're probably exhausted from 8 hours of being shouted at by angry customers. When you make this cognitive shift, your response changes from retaliatory anger to detached curiosity or even compassion. You stop reacting to the person and start addressing the situation. Marcus Aurelius provided himself with a simple mantra to enact this. When people injure you, ask yourself, what good or harm did they have in mind? Often, you'll find they were pursuing what they thought was good or avoiding what they thought was harm. However misguided their methods, their action was an error in judgment, not a targeted attack on your existence. Understanding this doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you engage from a place of strength and clarity rather than reactive fury. You can set a firm boundary with the colleague without needing to hate them. You can calmly escalate an issue with customer service without demeaning the human being on the other end of the line. Ultimately, practicing Sympatheia expands your circle of concern. It moves you from a narrow, self-centered view of the world to a cosmopolitan one, where you feel a sense of kinship with all rational beings. This feeling of connectedness is the opposite of the isolation that so often underpins anxiety and anger. You are never truly alone in your struggles. You are part of a common humanity, all of us navigating the same human condition, all of us flawed, all of us doing our best with the understanding and resources we have at any given moment. By weaving this understanding into your daily life, you replace the heat of reactive judgment with the cool, clear water of empathy, and you find that the world and the people in it become far less likely to trigger you in the first place. Now, if Sympatheia expands our perspective outward to our connection with all of humanity, there is a ninth practice that turns our focus inward with a stark and powerful clarity. This is the lesson of Memento Mori, a Latin phrase that translates to "remember you must die." At first, this might sound like the most morbid concept of all, a dark fixation on the end. But for the Stoics, it was the exact opposite. It was a vibrant, life-affirming tool for creating immense gratitude, urgency, and perspective. It is the ultimate lens for distinguishing what is truly important from what is merely noisy distraction, and it is one of the most effective ways to permanently reduce your reactivity to life's trivial irritations. The Stoics weren't alone in this practice. Many ancient cultures had their own versions, and the Stoics integrated it as a daily meditation. Seneca wrote letters urging his friends to value time as their most precious commodity, more valuable than any money, because time once spent can never be regained. He advised, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time." Marcus Aurelius would begin his days by reminding himself that the people he would meet, the tasks he would face, might be the last ones he ever encountered. He didn't do this to be depressed. He did it to be fully present, to be kind, and to ensure he acted with virtue right now, because a later opportunity was not guaranteed. The physical reminder was common, too. It said that Roman generals, when riding in a triumphal parade through the streets after a great victory, would have a servant standing behind them in the chariot whose sole job was to whisper in their ear, "Memento Mori, remember you are mortal." This was to prevent the general from becoming arrogant, from getting swept up in the fleeting cheers of the crowd and losing touch with reality. The reminder of death was the antidote to ego, a grounding wire that kept them focused on what was real and lasting rather than the temporary applause. How does this work in a modern context? Imagine you are about to get into a heated argument online over a minor political point. The rush of dopamine, the desire to be right, to win the exchange, is incredibly compelling. But now, apply Memento Mori. Pause for just 5 seconds and ask yourself, on the last day of my life, as I look back, will I be proud of the time I spent winning this argument with a stranger? Will this moment even register as a blip on the radar of my existence? The answer is a resounding no. That simple question instantly drains the situation of its false urgency and emotional charge. The need to react, to fire back, evaporates. You are left with a clear choice: invest your incredibly finite time and energy in a meaningless conflict, or simply close the browser and go call someone you love. Or consider a more common frustration: being stuck in a long, slow-moving line at the grocery store. Your body tenses, your impatience grows, you might even sigh loudly or make a comment. This is reactivity in its purest form. Now, remember death. Is this how you want to spend one of the precious, numbered moments of your one wild and beautiful life? Fuming in a checkout lane, the absurdity of it becomes immediately apparent. The perspective shifts from "this is taking forever" to "what a gift it is to even be here, to have the health to stand, the money to buy food, and a home to take it to." The irritation is replaced by a quiet, profound gratitude. The obstacle hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has been completely transformed by the weight of mortality. This practice doesn't promote a morbid inaction. It fuels passionate, purposeful action. Understanding that our time is limited is the greatest motivator to stop procrastinating on the things that truly matter. It's the reason you finally tell someone you love them, start that project you've been dreaming about, or forgive an old grudge. Death doesn't make life meaningless, it gives life its meaning. The deadline forces us to prioritize. If you knew you had only 6 months left to live, you would instantly stop worrying about what people thought of your outfit, whether your car was as nice as your neighbor's, or that rude comment from a coworker. You would focus with laser intensity on love, on beauty, on creating, and on making peace. Memento Mori is simply the practice of asking yourself every single day, what if I only had 6 months? What would I do differently? And then, crucially, starting to live that way today. It is the tool that hones your attention, cuts through the noise of modern life, and allows you to live not a perfect, easy life, but a rich, meaningful, and deeply authentic one, free from the petty reactions that steal our peace and our time. This brings us to a 10th practice that feels almost counterintuitive to our modern mindset of constant striving and control, yet it is the very source of profound tranquility. This is the art of acquiescence, the practice of willingly yielding to the flow of events rather than standing rigidly against the current. The Stoics called this following nature, which meant aligning your will with the rational, unfolding reality of the universe instead of fruitlessly arguing with it. It is the deep understanding that resistance to what is already true is the primary cause of our inner turmoil. Think of a powerful river flowing downstream. It encounters a large, immovable rock in its path. The river does not stop and rage against the rock. It does not attempt to argue with the rock's existence or waste its energy trying to vaporize it. The river simply accepts the rock's presence as a fact of its reality and immediately adjusts its course. It flows around it, over it, under it. It finds a way to continue its journey by incorporating the obstacle into its flow. The river's power is not diminished by this acquiescence, it is demonstrated by it. The rock becomes a feature that creates ripples and currents, adding to the river's dynamic beauty rather than halting its progress. We are meant to be like that river. Our suffering begins the moment we become the rock, demanding that the river change its course for us. This is not passive resignation or a lack of ambition. It is an active, intelligent form of engagement with reality. Acquiescence means distinguishing between what you can change and what you must accept. You can work to improve your health, but you must accept the genetic hand you were dealt. You can prepare meticulously for a job interview, but you must accept that the final hiring decision is not yours to make. Fighting against the genetic reality or obsessing over the decision you can't control is like trying to hold back the river with your bare hands. It is exhausting, futile, and only you will be left battered and drained. The power of this practice shines in moments of significant, unavoidable change. Consider the process of aging. A reactive approach is to fight it tooth and nail, to become bitter about wrinkles and decreasing energy, to spend a fortune and immense emotional energy trying to pretend time isn't passing. This resistance is a recipe for misery. The art of acquiescence involves accepting the natural process of aging as part of the human journey. It doesn't mean you stop exercising or eating well. It means you do those things to be healthy and vital at your current age, not to recapture your 20-year-old self. You yield to the reality of time, and in doing so, you open yourself to the unique gifts and wisdom that each new stage of life offers, freeing yourself from the frustration of a battle you cannot win. We see this Stoic art embodied beautifully in the story of the Japanese practice of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold lacquer. The breakage is not hidden, it is accepted and highlighted, becoming an integral part of the object's history and beauty. The bowl acquiesced to the fact of its breaking and, in the hands of a skilled artisan, became something even more valuable and unique because of it. We are the artisans of our own lives. The art of acquiescence is the first step in that repair. We stop denying the break and acknowledge it as part of our story. Only then can we begin the beautiful work of mending. In your daily life, this can be applied to countless minor irritations. You make plans for a picnic and it rains. You can spend the day indoors fuming at the weather, complaining about the ruined day and radiating frustration, or you can acquiesce to the reality of the rain. You accept that the picnic is off the table and immediately pivot. You build a blanket fort in the living room, make popcorn, and watch a movie. The day is transformed from a disappointment into a cozy, unexpected adventure. The event, the rain, didn't change, your resistance to it did. By yielding to the fact, you reclaimed your power to create a new, equally joyful experience. You stopped fighting nature and started flowing with it, and in that flow, you found a deeper and more adaptable peace. While we can control our responses to the world, there is immense power in not letting the world's chaos reach your core in the first place. This leads us to the 11th lesson, the practice of guarding your inner citadel. The Stoics envisioned the mind as a fortified castle, an inner stronghold that you alone control. The goal is not to hide from life, but to ensure that the noise, opinions, and turmoil of the outside world cannot breach your walls without your permission. Your inner peace becomes a sovereign state, and you are its vigilant guardian. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who faced constant war, political betrayal, and personal loss, was the ultimate exemplar of this. His private journal, known to us as Meditations, was not written for publication. It was his personal drill manual for fortifying his own citadel. In it, he constantly reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. The very act of writing was his primary technique for maintaining those walls. Each entry was a reinforcement, a way to check the gates, survey the perimeter of his thoughts, and expel any invaders of fear, anger, or vanity that had slipped in during the day. So how do we practically build and guard this citadel in our own lives? The techniques are timeless, and they begin with the very practice Marcus Aurelius used, daily journaling. But this isn't just writing about your day. This is Stoic journaling, a deliberate exercise in self-examination and mental fortification. One powerful method is the evening review. At the end of each day, ask yourself 3 questions directly inspired by the Stoics. What did I do well today in terms of virtue? Where did I let my reactions get the better of me? And what could I do tomorrow to be better? This isn't about self-criticism, it's about honest inventory. It's like reviewing the security footage of your mind to see where the defenses were strong and where they might need shoring up. By doing this, you actively process the events of the day, learn from your reactions, and prevent external triggers from accumulating into lingering anxiety. The second essential technique is the practice of mindfulness or meditation. While the Stoics didn't use the word meditation in the Eastern sense, their practice of focused attention on the present moment is remarkably similar. This is the on-the-spot guard duty for your citadel. When you feel an external event triggering a reactive impulse, a surge of anger, a wave of anxiety, you don't have to wait until evening to journal about it. You can deploy a moment of mindfulness right there. Simply pause and bring your full attention to your breath. Observe the physical sensation of the emotion without judging it or immediately acting on it. Is your heart racing? Are your shoulders tense? By observing the reaction in your body, you create a crucial sliver of space between the trigger and your response. You are no longer the emotion, you are the awareness watching the emotion. In that space lies your freedom to choose. This daily practice, even for just a few minutes, strengthens your ability to remain the calm, centered observer within the storm rather than being blown about by it. Guarding your inner citadel also means being ruthless about what you allow through the gates of your senses. In the modern world, this is more critical than ever. The constant barrage of news notifications, social media comparisons, and the curated highlight reels of other people's lives are like a constant siege on your attention and peace. A Stoic understands that what they consume mentally is just as important as what they consume physically. This might mean setting boundaries with technology, choosing to not engage with certain types of media that you know trigger anxiety or envy, or being selective about the conversations you invest your energy in. It's not about ignorance, it's about conscious consumption. You are not hiding from reality. You are choosing to engage with it on your terms from a position of strength, rather than being a passive recipient of whatever chaos the world decides to throw at you. Ultimately, a well-guarded citadel doesn't make you cold or detached. It makes you incredibly stable, reliable, and present. When you are not constantly being thrown off balance by external events, you have more energy and clarity to actually engage with the world in a meaningful way. You can listen to a friend in crisis without being overwhelmed by their pain. You can tackle a complex problem at work without being derailed by frustration. You can enjoy a beautiful moment without the underlying fear of losing it. Your inner peace becomes a resource not just for you, but for everyone around you. By building strong walls within, you ensure that you always have a quiet place to retreat to, a center of unwavering calm from which you can operate with wisdom and virtue, no matter what chaos reigns outside. We've built strong walls around our inner citadel, learning to guard our peace from external chaos. But sometimes the greatest threat to our tranquility isn't what comes from the outside, it's what comes out of our own mouth. This brings us to the 12th Stoic lesson, a deceptively simple practice that requires immense strength, the discipline of silence and restraint, particularly in moments of high emotion. The Stoics placed enormous value on the power of listening and the virtue of saying only what is necessary, true, and kind. They understood that speech is an action, and like any action, it should be undertaken with deliberate intent, not launched as a reactive volley. Seneca offered some of the most pointed advice on this, writing, "Be silent more than you speak, for speaking is like sowing, and silence is like reaping and garnering the fruit." In other words, every time you speak, you are planting a seed. Some seeds will grow into strong, healthy plants, understanding, connection, resolution. But many others, planted in the heat of anger or anxiety, will grow into weeds of regret, misunderstanding, and conflict. Restraint is the process of carefully choosing your seeds. Think about the last time you had a heated argument. The words flew out, fueled by adrenaline. You aimed to win, to be right, to score a point, and perhaps you did. But in the cold light of minutes or hours later, you were left harvesting the bitter fruit of those words, a wounded relationship, a fractured trust, a situation now worse than it was before the argument even began. This is the reactive outburst Stoic restraint seeks to prevent. It's not about suppressing your truth. It's about ensuring that when you do speak, your words are your servants, not your masters, and they are deployed with purpose, not passion. So how do we build this muscle? It begins with a tactical pause, a physical intervention between the trigger and your tongue. When you feel that surge of emotion, the flush of anger, the prick of defensiveness, your first and most important task is to consciously close your mouth. Do not let the first thing that comes to mind become the first thing out of your mouth. Instead, take a slow, deep breath. This simple act does two crucial things physiologically. It oxygenates your brain, helping you think more clearly, and it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, putting the brakes on your fight or flight response. That single breath creates a tiny island of calm in the stormy sea of your emotions, a space where you can choose your next move. In that pause, engage in a rapid internal dialogue. Ask yourself the 3 Stoic questions of assent. Is what I am about to say true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? This filter is brutally effective. In an argument, you might feel like saying, "You're such a jerk for forgetting that." But when you run it through the filter, is it true? Well, they did forget, so technically yes. Is it necessary? Will calling them a jerk help the situation or just make them defensive? Almost certainly not. Is it kind? Clearly not. The impulse to lash out fails the test on 2 out of 3 counts, giving you a clear signal to hold your tongue. Instead, you can choose a response that passes the test. I was really counting on you to remember that, and I feel let down. Can we figure out how to prevent this next time? This isn't weak, it's strategic and virtuous. It addresses the real issue without creating a new, more personal one. This practice transforms you from a reactive participant in a conflict to a calm observer of it. You become like a judo master, using the energy of the attack to gain control rather than meeting it with equal force. Your silence, when chosen rather than forced, becomes incredibly powerful. It deprives the argument of the oxygen it needs to keep burning. It often makes the other person lean in, wondering what you're thinking, rather than bracing for your counterattack. And most importantly, it gives you the time to access your highest values, your patience, your empathy, your wisdom, rather than your lowest impulses. The benefits of this discipline extend far beyond arguments. In meetings, practicing restraint by listening more allows you to fully understand all perspectives before you contribute, making your eventual points more insightful and respected. In social settings, it keeps you from gossiping or offering unsolicited opinions that can cause harm. Every time you choose mindful silence over mindless chatter, you are not missing out. You are investing in your own dignity and peace of mind. You are proving to yourself that you are in command of your own mind, and that your self-worth is not dependent on having the last word. This quiet confidence is the ultimate expression of inner strength, a silent declaration that your peace is more valuable than winning a petty battle, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Imagine for a moment that your sense of peace and contentment is a beautiful, clear pond. Every time you desire something you don't have, a newer car, a bigger house, a more prestigious job title, it's like tossing a pebble into that pond. The ripples of desire, of wanting, of feeling that you are not yet enough or don't yet have enough, spread out and disturb the entire surface. The pond is never still. This constant state of want is a primary engine of emotional reactivity. It fuels envy when others have what we want, anxiety that we might not get it, and frustration when our desires are thwarted. The 13th Stoic lesson is about learning to stop throwing pebbles. It is the practice of defining for yourself with crystal clarity what is enough. This is the ancient antidote to the modern plague of infinite wanting. The Stoics called this concept the guides of the needs, a practice of drawing a sharp, unwavering line between our actual needs and our endless wants. Epictetus, who lived with very few possessions, drove this point home by constantly reminding his students that freedom is not the right to satisfy every desire, but the liberty from being controlled by those desires in the first place. He said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This is the cornerstone of Stoic contentment. It's not about deprivation or living in poverty. It's about the profound liberation that comes when you consciously decide that you already have everything you require to be happy and to live a life of virtue. You break the chain that links your emotional state to the acquisition of external things. Let's bring this into a modern context with the powerful force of consumerism. Advertisers spend billions of dollars a year with one primary goal: to convince you that your current enough is not enough. They manufacture a sense of lack, a feeling that you are incomplete without their product. Your phone is perfectly functional, but a new model comes out with a slightly better camera, and suddenly your old phone feels inadequate. This engineered dissatisfaction is a pebble tossed directly into your pond. The Stoic response is not to swear off technology, but to consciously define your enough. You might decide, my enough is a phone that makes clear calls, sends texts, and allows me to browse the internet. My current phone does that perfectly. By defining that line, you immunize yourself against the marketing message. You can see the new phone ad and appreciate its technology without feeling the compulsive need to own it. The desire arises perhaps, but you don't assent to it. You simply observe it and let it pass, leaving your pond perfectly still. This practice becomes even more crucial when applied to social comparison, one of the greatest sources of modern anxiety. Social media is essentially a highlight reel of other people's wants, that they have acquired the luxurious vacations, the perfect homes, the seemingly flawless lives. When we constantly measure our own behind-the-scenes reality against everyone else's curated highlights, we are guaranteed to feel that we are falling short. Our definition of enough becomes a moving target, forever shifting based on what we see others have. A Stoic, however, has an internal barometer for enough. They have done the hard work of deciding what is sufficient for their own happiness, independent of anyone else's achievements or possessions. When they see a friend's vacation photos, they can feel genuine joy for their friend's experience without it triggering a feeling of lack in their own life. They can think, I'm happy for them, and I am also happy with my own plan for a quiet weekend at home, which is exactly what I need right now. This ability to celebrate others' success without it diminishing your own sense of contentment is a superpower that flows directly from knowing what is enough for you. So how do you actually define your enough? It requires a deliberate audit of your life. Sit down with a notebook and draw 2 columns, needs and wants. In the needs column, list the true essentials: nutritious food, clean water, safe shelter, basic clothing, meaningful work, and the health of your loved ones. These are the things that, if taken away, would genuinely cause hardship. In the wants column, be brutally honest: the luxury car, the designer clothes, the larger television, the exotic vacation, the public recognition. There is nothing inherently wrong with wants. The Stoics weren't against enjoying fine things. The danger is in mistaking a want for a need, and then allowing your emotional stability to depend on acquiring it. The goal is to be able to enjoy the things in the wants column if they come your way, but to be perfectly peaceful and content if they do not. Your happiness is rooted in the needs column, which is likely already full. This philosophy was embodied perfectly by the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the world, who constantly reminded himself to avoid the trappings of his own station. He wrote, "How very easy it is to repel and to wipe away every impression which is troublesome or unsuitable, and immediately to be in all tranquility." He had access to anything he could possibly want, yet he defined his enough not as more palaces or more conquests, but as the ability to act with justice, wisdom, and self-discipline. His inner yardstick was his virtue, not his possessions. By defining your own enough, you accomplish the same thing. You shift the source of your happiness from the unpredictable external world, which you cannot control, to your own internal values and judgments, which you control completely. The noise of wanting fades away, and you are left with the quiet, steady hum of contentment, a state where you are far less likely to be emotionally rocked by what you don't have, because you have already decided that you have everything you need. And after learning to define what is enough for ourselves, we find a powerful tool to help us actually live up to that standard, especially in moments when our resolve is tested. This is the 14th Stoic lesson, using role models for guidance. We are social creatures, deeply influenced by the people we admire. The Stoics understood this and actively harnessed it by choosing exemplars of virtue to serve as their personal North Stars, especially during times of confusion or emotional turbulence. When you are unsure how to act, you can simply ask yourself, what would my role model do in this situation? The Stoics didn't just have a vague admiration for these figures. They studied their lives, their writings, and their responses to adversity in meticulous detail. For a Roman Stoic, this might have been Cato the Younger, a senator who chose to take his own life rather than live under the tyranny of Julius Caesar, becoming an ultimate symbol of unwavering principle and liberty. For others, it was Socrates, who calmly accepted his unjust execution by drinking hemlock, using his final moments to philosophize about the immortality of the soul rather than yielding to fear or anger. And for many, it was their own teachers, like Epictetus, who embodied the philosophy despite being born into slavery, proving that circumstances have no power over one's inner freedom. These weren't mythical heroes, they were real people who faced real, often brutal, challenges and responded with profound courage and wisdom. By keeping their stories close, the Stoics had a living library of virtuous responses to draw upon. So how do we practically apply this today? It begins with consciously selecting your own personal board of Stoic advisors, whose character do you deeply respect. It could be a historical figure like Marcus Aurelius, whose private journal reveals a man constantly struggling to be better amidst immense power and pressure. It could be a modern figure like Nelson Mandela, who demonstrated incredible forgiveness and foresight after decades of imprisonment. It could even be someone you know personally, a grandparent, a mentor, a friend whose calm demeanor and integrity in the face of hardship you've always admired. The key is to choose someone whose virtues you wish to cultivate in yourself. Once you have this role model in mind, you make them a mental companion. Before a difficult conversation, take a moment to pause and ask, how would my role model enter this room? What mindset would they have? If you're feeling tempted to cut a corner or tell a white lie for personal gain, imagine your role model standing beside you, observing your choice. Would they nod in approval or look away in disappointment? This isn't about seeking external validation. It's about using an idealized version of virtue to calibrate your own moral compass. It externalizes your own highest values, giving them a face and a story, which makes them far more powerful and accessible than a vague, abstract principle. This practice shines brightest in moments of rising anger or frustration. Let's say you're driving and someone cuts you off dangerously. The raw, reactive impulse is to lay on the horn, shout, or even engage in risky retaliation. But now, invoke your role model. What would Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who dealt with actual betrayals and wars, do in this situation? He would likely recognize the other driver's action as an external event outside his control, born from that person's own ignorance or haste. He would refuse to be harmed by it, and he would certainly not compromise his own character and safety by responding with further chaos. By asking this simple question, you create a momentary pause, a circuit breaker in your reactive brain that allows your higher reasoning to engage. You are no longer just an angry driver, you are a student of philosophy, consciously choosing how to embody the lessons you've learned. The beautiful thing about this technique is that it's not about perfection. You are not failing if you don't act exactly as Cotto would have in every moment. The point is the striving. The very act of asking the question elevates your thinking and makes a virtuous response more likely. Over time, you internalize the values of your role models until their wisdom becomes your own instinct. You start to make choices not because you're afraid of letting someone down, but because you have fundamentally become the kind of person they inspired you to be. Your role model becomes less of an external judge and more of an inner voice, a built-in guide for navigating life's complexities with a little more grace, a little more courage, and a lot more calm. So we've learned to guard our inner citadel and to let our role models guide us. But what happens when a powerful impression has already breached the gates, triggering a flood of emotion before we even have a chance to call for reinforcements? This is where our 15th lesson becomes our most active line of defense. It's the practice of examining your impressions, a methodical process of taking that initial, raw emotional reaction and dissecting it under the cold, clear light of reason to see if it aligns with reality. This is the core of Stoic cognitive therapy, a way to surgically remove the distortions that cause so much of our suffering. The Stoics used a powerful metaphor for this. They said an untrained mind is like a bowl of water. When a disturbing impression is thrown into it, an insult, a piece of bad news, the water ripples and churns violently. A trained mind, however, is like a bowl of oil. When the same impression is dropped in, the oil accepts it with barely a ripple, remaining calm and undisturbed. The impression itself hasn't changed. What's changed is the medium that receives it. Examining your impressions is the process of turning your mind from water into oil. You learn to receive the news without being violently agitated by it. Let's break down the practical, step-by-step process you can use in any moment of emotional upheaval. The first step is to simply press pause and identify the trigger with clinical precision. Your heart is racing, your face is flushed, something has happened. Before you act, name it. Don't use emotional language, state the bare facts. Instead of saying, "My boss just completely disrespected me in front of the whole team," you would say, "My boss said I expected more from this report during the team meeting." This act of simple description creates an immediate and crucial distance between the event and your interpretation of it. You are moving from the emotional storm center to the observational balcony. Now, with the trigger clearly identified, you move to the second and most critical step, questioning its validity. This is where you play detective with your own thoughts. You take that initial automatic judgment, "He disrespected me, this is a catastrophe," and you put it on the witness stand. You cross-examine it. Is this thought 100% true? What is the actual evidence for it? Could there be another, far less personal explanation? Perhaps the boss is under immense pressure from their own superior, and the comment was a reflection of their stress, not a verdict on your worth. Maybe the report did fall short of expectations, and the comment was a simple, if blunt, statement of fact intended to correct course, not to insult. You are searching for the cognitive distortions, the jumping to conclusions, the catastrophizing, the personalization that are amplifying the event into a crisis. This process of questioning effectively separates the external event from your internal narrative about the event. The event is neutral until you assign it a meaning. The boss's comment is just a series of sound waves. Your story about what those sound waves mean, that you are disrespected, that your job is in jeopardy, is what creates the emotional tsunami. By challenging the story, you drain it of its power. Finally, having interrogated the impression, you arrive at the third step, consciously choosing a rational response based on what is actually true and what is within your control. You've determined that the boss's comment might indicate the report needs work, which is within your control to fix, and that their tone was likely not a personal attack, which is outside your control. Your chosen response, therefore, is not to fire off a defensive email or to sulk for the rest of the day. It is to schedule a brief, calm follow-up conversation to ask for specific feedback on how to improve the report. You have moved from a reactive state of perceived victimhood to a proactive state of problem-solving. We can see this practice embodied with incredible power in the life of the psychologist Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the horrors of Nazi concentration camps. He wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." The Stoics were teaching this exact principle 2,000 years earlier. Frankl's stimulus was the unimaginable brutality of the camps. His initial impressions would have been terror, despair, and hopelessness. But in that space, he exercised his power to choose his response. He chose to find meaning in his suffering, to observe the psychology of his captors with a detached curiosity, and to hold onto the mental image of his wife, which gave him a reason to live. He examined his impressions of hell and chose a response rooted in meaning and love. You can apply this same framework to the smallest irritations of daily life. Someone cuts you off in traffic. The initial impression is rage and a story of intentional disrespect. You pause, you identify the trigger. A car changed lanes abruptly in front of you. You question the narrative. Is it true they did it to disrespect me? Almost certainly not. They are likely distracted, rushed, or simply a poor driver. You then choose your response, to take a deep breath, create a safe following distance, and let the feeling of anger pass without acting on it. You have protected your peace and your safety by examining the impression rather than obeying it. This constant, gentle auditing of your thoughts is how you build a mind of unshakable clarity, ensuring that your emotions are informed by reason, not the other way around. After learning to question the impressions that disturb our peace, we must also actively cultivate the thoughts that fortify it. This brings us to a 16th practice that acts as a direct antidote to the feelings of lack and dissatisfaction we so often face: the daily discipline of gratitude. While the Stoics practiced a form of this through negative visualization, imagining the loss of what they had to appreciate it more, the modern practice of gratitude journaling or reflection provides a structured way to rewire our brains for contentment. This isn't about naive positivity or ignoring life's difficulties. It's a strategic exercise in training your attention to notice and appreciate the good that is already present, effectively shifting your baseline from one of scarcity to one of abundance. The mechanics are simple, but their impact is neurologically profound. Each day, typically in the morning or evening, you take a few moments to consciously identify and write down 3 to 5 specific things you are grateful for. The key is to move beyond the general, "I'm grateful for my family," and into the specific, "I'm grateful for the way my daughter laughed uncontrollably at breakfast this morning," or "I'm grateful for the warmth of the sun on my face during my walk." This specificity forces you to truly relive the positive experience, etching it more deeply into your memory and strengthening its emotional impact. You are quite literally conducting a search for evidence of good in your life, and as with any search, the more you look for it, the more of it you will find. This practice directly counteracts 2 of the most common drivers of emotional reactivity: envy and frustration. Envy thrives on a sense of lack, the painful feeling that someone else has something you are missing. By systematically cataloging the blessings in your own life, you drain the power from that comparison. You might see a neighbor's new car and feel a twinge of want, but because you have just written down your gratitude for your own reliable vehicle that gets you to work safely every day, the twinge doesn't solidify into a full-blown sense of deprivation. Your focus is on what you have, not on what you don't. Similarly, frustration often stems from things not going according to our plan: the traffic jam, the cancelled plan, the broken appliance. A gratitude practice doesn't make the traffic jam disappear, but it can completely reframe the context. You can be simultaneously frustrated by the delay and deeply grateful that you have a car, a job to go to, and a podcast you love to listen to during the drive. The frustration ceases to be the entire story and becomes merely a subplot in a much larger narrative of abundance. The power of this Stoic-aligned exercise is now strongly supported by modern science. Numerous studies in the field of positive psychology have demonstrated that a consistent gratitude practice can produce significant and lasting improvements in mental well-being. Research has shown it can lower levels of the stress hormone cortisol, sometimes by up to 23%, and improve sleep quality by reducing anxious pre-sleep thoughts. MRI scans have revealed that practicing gratitude regularly can actually change the brain's structure, strengthening neural pathways associated with empathy and positive emotion while weakening those linked to stress and negativity. One famous study asked participants with existing mental health concerns to write a few sentences each week about things they were grateful for. After just 10 weeks, this group reported significantly greater optimism and life satisfaction compared to groups who wrote about irritations or neutral events. They weren't just feeling better, they were also exercising more and making fewer visits to physicians. The act of counting their blessings had tangible physical benefits. This isn't just about feeling a warm glow, it's about building a robust psychological immune system. When you make gratitude a daily ritual, you are effectively building a reservoir of positive memories and feelings that you can draw from when faced with adversity. On a difficult day, you can look back through your journal and be reminded of moments of joy, connection, and beauty, proving to yourself that good things do happen and will happen again. It provides perspective, preventing any single negative event from dominating your entire emotional landscape. The Stoic aim was to achieve a state of tranquility or ataraxia, a calmness that is not dependent on external events. Gratitude is a practical engine for achieving this because it trains you to derive your sense of peace from the appreciation of what is, rather than the anxious pursuit of what might be. You are no longer waiting for the next promotion, the next purchase, or the next vacation to be happy. You are finding ample reasons for happiness in the ordinary, incredible gift of your present moment. Imagine your sense of self-worth is a chair. If that chair has only two legs, the two legs of other people's praise and approval, it will be incredibly wobbly. The slightest criticism or moment of indifference from someone else can make the whole thing topple over, leaving you feeling unstable and desperate to prop it back up. This constant need for external validation is what the Stoics warned against, calling it a form of slavery to other people's opinions. The 17th lesson is about building a chair with 4 solid legs of your own making, crafting a stable and internal sense of self-worth that remains unshaken by the shifting winds of what others think. This addiction to opinion is a primary fuel for emotional reactivity. When your emotional state is tied to external validation, you hand over the remote control for your happiness to everyone else. A compliment from your boss sends you soaring for hours, while a perceived slight from a stranger can ruin your entire afternoon. You are no longer living your life according to your own values. You are performing a constant, exhausting dance, trying to guess what will win you applause and avoid what might get you booed off the stage. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who himself was mocked and dismissed by many in his time, put it bluntly: if anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." This isn't self-deprecation, it's a profound declaration of independence. It means you are already so aware of your own imperfections that someone else's opinion adds nothing new. You have already done the inventory, so their commentary is merely an echo, not a revelation. So how do we break this addiction and build that internal stability? The first and most crucial strategy is to define your own personal standards of success and character. This is your internal scorecard. Most people live by an external scorecard. Was I promoted? Did I get more likes? Did someone say I did a good job? The internal scorecard asks entirely different questions. Did I work with integrity today? Was I kind even when it was difficult? Did I do my best regardless of the outcome? Did I act in alignment with my values? When you judge your day by this private metric, the public opinion of your performance loses its power. You might not get the promotion, but if you know you acted with diligence and honesty, you can still rest easy. Conversely, you might receive heaps of praise for a project, but if you know you cut corners and acted selfishly to achieve it, that praise will feel hollow. The opinion that matters most is the one you hold of yourself when you look in the mirror last thing at night. Another powerful technique is to consciously practice indifference to both praise and blame. This doesn't mean becoming arrogant or ignoring constructive feedback. It means receiving both positive and negative opinions with the same detached curiosity. Imagine praise and criticism as 2 different types of weather. One is sunshine, the other is rain. You wouldn't let a sunny day define your entire self-worth, so why would you let a compliment do that? Similarly, you wouldn't take a rainy day as a personal insult, so why treat criticism that way? They are both external conditions that will pass. When someone praises you, receive it gratefully but lightly, understanding that it is simply their perspective in that moment. When someone criticizes you, receive it with the same calm detachment. Ask yourself if there is any useful data in their comment that aligns with your own internal scorecard. If there is, learn from it. If it's simply noise, let it pass over you like a cloud. By refusing to either cling to praise or flee from criticism, you neutralize their emotional charge. We can see this principle embodied in the lives of great artists and innovators who were initially met with scorn. The post-impressionist painter Vincent van Gogh sold virtually none of his work during his lifetime and was largely dismissed by the art world. Yet he continued to paint, driven by an internal compulsion to create according to his own vision and standards. His sense of worth was tied to the act of creation itself, not to the external validation of sales or acclaim. He was building his chair with the legs of his own passion and integrity, and history has proven the strength of that foundation. While most of us aren't painting masterpieces, we all create something: a project at work, a home for our family, a relationship. The lesson is to pour your effort into the integrity of the creation itself, not into the applause you hope it will receive. When your validation comes from the doing, from the living of your values, you become the source of your own stability, free from the addictive and reactive cycle of seeking your worth in the eyes of others. It's one thing to understand the principles of resilience, and quite another to forge that resilience into an unshakable part of your character through direct personal experience. This brings us to the 18th lesson, a practice that might seem counterintuitive at first glance, but is one of the most effective ways to build true inner strength: the deliberate embrace of voluntary discomfort. This involves intentionally choosing small, manageable hardships in your daily life, opting for the colder shower, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, or skipping a meal to fast for a few hours. The goal isn't to punish yourself or to live a life of austerity, but to actively train your mind and body to understand, on a visceral level, that you can handle far more than you think you can. It's like emotional and mental weightlifting. By regularly lifting small weights of discomfort, you prepare yourself to easily lift the heavy weights of unexpected misfortune when they inevitably come your way. Think of your comfort zone not as a safe haven, but as a fragile bubble. The longer you stay inside it, the thinner its walls become, and the more terrifying the world outside appears. The slightest prick of inconvenience, a traffic jam, a delayed package, a critical comment, can cause the entire bubble to pop, triggering a disproportionate emotional reaction. Voluntary discomfort is the practice of gently pushing against those walls yourself, strengthening them from the inside out. Each time you willingly step into a minor hardship, you are proving to your deepest, most primal self that discomfort is not an emergency. You are demonstrating that you can feel cold or hunger or fatigue and still remain perfectly calm, focused, and in control. This repeated proof builds a deep-seated confidence that is immune to life's minor irritations, because you have already voluntarily faced and mastered far worse on your own terms. The forms this practice can take are as varied as your daily routine. It could be choosing to walk to the store in slightly inclement weather instead of waiting for a perfectly clear day. It could be turning off the entertainment and sitting in quiet solitude for 30 minutes, facing only your own thoughts. It could be taking on a difficult physical task manually instead of using a labor-saving device. The ancient Stoics, like Seneca, actively practiced this. Despite his immense wealth, he would periodically adopt a lifestyle of poverty, sleeping on a hard bed and eating simple, plain food. He wasn't doing this out of guilt or self-flagellation. He was conducting a philosophical experiment. He was asking himself and answering through experience, "Is this the condition that I feared?" And each time the answer was a resounding no. He was fine. His tranquility remained intact. By doing this, he severed the mistaken link his mind had formed between his external comfort and his internal peace. The immense power of this training reveals itself most clearly when true, involuntary hardship strikes. If you have never voluntarily been cold, the first chilly night of a power outage will feel like a life-threatening catastrophe, flooding your system with panic and stress. But if you have regularly taken cool showers, your body and mind know the sensation well. Your reaction is not one of panic, but of calm recognition. "Ah, this is cold. I know this feeling. It is uncomfortable, but I am safe. I can handle this." The same applies to emotional and professional setbacks. If you have voluntarily put yourself in situations where you might fail, like taking on a challenging new project or having a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, the sting of an actual failure or rejection is significantly dulled. You have already taught your nervous system that failure is a data point, not a verdict on your worth. You have built a callus of courage where there was once only raw vulnerability. This practice is the ultimate antidote to the modern expectation of effortless convenience, a world that paradoxically makes us more fragile by eliminating every possible friction. When we expect everything to be easy, the smallest obstacle feels like a profound injustice. Voluntary hardship reintroduces a healthy amount of friction, not to make us miserable, but to make us robust, adaptable, and deeply appreciative. After a period of fasting, a simple piece of bread tastes like a feast. After a walk in the cold, the warmth of your home feels like a profound blessing. You reset your baseline for comfort and gratitude, realizing that what you considered ordinary necessities are, in fact, extraordinary luxuries. By regularly choosing to embrace discomfort, you are not seeking out suffering. You are inoculating yourself against the fear of suffering, and in doing so, you unlock a far more resilient and appreciative way of moving through the world. Yet after building resilience and defining our own worth, we arrive at a question that lies at the very heart of the human experience. Where do we actually find real, lasting happiness? The modern world offers us a clear and seductive answer. It tells us that joy is an external destination we can reach if we just acquire the right things: the perfect job, the ideal relationship, the impressive number on a bank statement, the next vacation, the next promotion. We are conditioned to believe that happiness is a prize waiting for us on the other side of some future achievement. This creates a dangerous and reactive cycle. We tie our emotional state to outcomes we cannot fully control, setting ourselves up for inevitable disappointment. When the promotion goes to someone else, when the relationship hits a rough patch, when the new car loses its novelty, our sense of happiness evaporates, and we are left feeling cheated, frustrated, and empty, perpetually chasing the next external fix. The 19th Stoic lesson offers a radical and liberating alternative. It teaches us to cultivate an inner joy that is entirely independent of outside circumstances. The Stoics argued with unwavering clarity that virtue, that is, living with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, is the only true good. Everything else, our health, our wealth, our reputations, they classified as preferred indifference. These are things it is natural to prefer having, but they are not inherently good or bad in themselves. Their value depends entirely on how we use them. A wise person with little money can live a joyous and fulfilling life, while a foolish person with great wealth can be utterly miserable. The source of their difference is not their bank accounts, but their character. This philosophy completely reorients our pursuit of happiness from an external scavenger hunt to an internal cultivation project. Your joy is no longer something to be found. It is something to be built and nurtured within yourself through your own choices and actions right now. We can see this principle illuminated in the lives of the Stoics themselves. Consider the stark contrast between the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius and his predecessor, Nero. Nero had absolute power, limitless wealth, and the ability to satisfy any and every earthly desire instantly. His pursuit of happiness was entirely external, and it led him to paranoia, cruelty, and ultimately a miserable death. Marcus Aurelius, who had access to the same immense power and wealth, found his joy internally. His private writings reveal a man who derived his deepest satisfaction not from his imperial titles, but from his private struggle to be more patient, more just, and more reasonable each day. His happiness was rooted in the integrity of his own character, a possession that no external event could ever take from him. He could find joy even amidst the plague and wars that defined his reign, because his peace was not dependent on their cessation. This inner cultivation begins with a simple but profound shift in what we choose to take pride in. The modern mindset encourages us to take pride in our possessions, our job titles, our social media followings, things that are fleeting and largely outside our control. The Stoic learns to take pride in their effort, their integrity, their resilience, things that are entirely within their control. Did you face a difficult situation and manage to respond with patience instead of anger? That is a cause for genuine internal celebration. Did you have the opportunity to cut a corner for personal gain but chose to act with honesty instead? That is a profound victory. This is how you build inner joy brick by brick. You are constantly collecting these small, private victories of character, and each one adds to a foundation of self-respect and contentment that is utterly unshakable by external praise or blame. This doesn't mean you can't enjoy the good things in life. The Stoics weren't ascetics. They believed in enjoying the pleasures of the world, but with a loose grip. You can thoroughly savor a delicious meal, appreciate a beautiful sunset, or enjoy the comfort of a safe home. The key is to enjoy these things without becoming attached to them, without making your happiness contingent upon their continued presence. See them as temporary gifts, not permanent entitlements. This mindset allows you to experience the joy of a sunny day without feeling devastated when it rains. You appreciate the gift while it lasts, and you let it go without struggle when it passes, your inner joy remaining constant because it was never dependent on the weather in the first place. By cultivating this inner source of joy, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of modern life. You are no longer reactive to every gain and loss because your core happiness is built on the unshakable ground of your own virtue, a project that is always available to you, no matter what is happening in the world outside. Now, let's bring these principles into the practical rhythm of your daily life with a powerful and transformative practice, the evening review. This is the 20th lesson, and it serves as your daily training ground, a structured way to turn the events of your day into a curriculum for emotional mastery. While the previous lessons provide the tools, the evening review is where you sharpen them, examining the nicks and dull spots so you can return them to a finer edge each morning. It's a Stoic ritual of gentle, honest self-assessment, a quiet conversation with yourself at the close of the day designed not for self-criticism but for profound and continuous growth. Imagine your mind is a workshop where your character is the craft. Throughout the day, the world brings you raw materials in the form of challenges, interactions, and frustrations. Some you handle with the skill of a master artisan, others you might fumble, leaving a rough edge or a clumsy joint. The evening review is the time you put on your apron, turn on the light, and look over the day's work. You're not there to angrily smash the pieces that didn't turn out perfectly. You're there to learn from them, to understand what went wrong and how you can improve your technique tomorrow. It's a practice of calm archaeology, sifting through the layers of your own reactions to uncover the patterns and beliefs that drive them. The Stoics, particularly Seneca, were ardent advocates of this practice. In his moral letters, he describes his own nightly ritual. When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now become her own, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by. He would ask himself pointed questions, holding his actions up to the unwavering light of his principles. Did he speak out of anger? Did he act out of envy? Did he waste time on trivialities? This wasn't an exercise in guilt. It was an exercise in accountability. He was his own most gentle and rigorous teacher, ensuring that each day ended with a clearer understanding of himself than it began. You can integrate this ancient wisdom into your modern life with a simple, three-part template for self-assessment. The goal is to move from vague feelings of regret or satisfaction to specific, actionable insights. First, acknowledge what you did well. Begin by asking, where did I act with virtue today? Scan your day for moments, however small, where you chose wisdom over impulse, courage over comfort, or justice over self-interest. Perhaps you held your tongue during a provocation where you normally would have lashed out. Maybe you offered kindness to someone who didn't seem to deserve it. Or perhaps you simply used a frustrating delay as an opportunity for a moment of mindfulness instead of fuming. Celebrating these victories, no matter how minor, reinforces the neural pathways of virtuous behavior. It tells your brain, this is the direction we want to go. This positive reinforcement is crucial as it builds the confidence and motivation to keep trying. Second, and this is the heart of the review, identify where your reactions were excessive or unwise. Ask, where did I let an external event disturb my peace? Be a compassionate detective. Think of a moment where you felt a surge of anger, anxiety, or irritation. Now gently dissect it. What was the initial trigger? What was the story you told yourself about that trigger? Was that story completely true, or was it a cognitive distortion? Most importantly, where did you blur the line of the dichotomy of control? Did you invest emotional energy in trying to control something or someone that was ultimately outside your command? For instance, if you got upset over a colleague's negative comment, the review isn't about them. It's about why you assigned so much power to their words. You're not judging yourself for feeling the emotion. You're understanding the underlying belief that gave that emotion its power. Finally, prepare for tomorrow. Based on your assessment, ask, what is one thing I can do differently next time a similar situation arises? This turns reflection into resolution. If you identified that you become reactive when you're hungry or tired, your resolution might be to ensure you have a healthy snack at your desk. If you notice that criticism from a particular person always stings, your resolution might be to mentally rehydrate your internal scorecard before interacting with them. You are crafting a tiny, specific mental protocol for yourself. This isn't about vowing to be perfect. It's about choosing a single, manageable step toward greater calm. By ending your review with a forward-looking intention, you close the day not with regret but with purposeful hope, armed with a practical strategy for the challenges to come. This daily practice of the evening review builds the most valuable form of wisdom, self-knowledge. Over time, you will stop being surprised by your own reactions. You will see your triggers coming from a mile away and have your prepared response ready. You will transform from a passive passenger in your emotional life to the skilled pilot, calmly adjusting the controls based on the instrument readings from your daily review. It is the quiet, consistent work that forges unshakable emotional control, turning the philosophy of the Stoics from an abstract idea into the lived truth of your character, one peaceful evening at a time. While we often picture Stoic sages as solemn and stone-faced, immersed in serious contemplation, this misses a crucial and surprisingly vibrant part of their philosophy. The 21st lesson reveals that the Stoics were not opponents of joy. They were masters of perspective, and one of their sharpest tools for maintaining that perspective was a well-timed sense of humor. The great Stoic teacher Seneca, a man who counseled emperors and faced exile, placed a high value on what he called a kindly and light-hearted spirit in the face of life's inevitable absurdities. He saw laughter not as a distraction from virtue, but as an expression of it, a way to gracefully acknowledge that much of life is utterly beyond our control and often, frankly, ridiculous. Humor, in the Stoic sense, is the mental equivalent of stepping back to view a frustrating situation from a new angle, one that reveals its inherent silliness and deflates its power to upset us. Think of a moment when you were on the verge of a full-blown reactive outburst. Maybe you were meticulously preparing for an important virtual meeting, and right as you were about to speak, your internet connection died completely. The initial surge of panic and frustration is visceral, but if in that moment you can catch yourself and paint a mental picture of the scene, you, dressed professionally, passionately talking to a frozen screen of confused faces, or worse, an empty void, the absurdity can become genuinely funny. That shift doesn't fix the Wi-Fi, but it does something far more important. It fixes your reaction to the Wi-Fi. It separates the event from the catastrophic story you were about to tell yourself about ruining your career. By finding the humor, you are essentially conducting a rapid, informal view from above. You are reducing a moment of high personal drama to its actual, manageable size, recognizing that this is not a tragedy, but a minor, laughable glitch in the grand scheme of your life. This practice finds its power in the way it physically and mentally disarms tension. Anger and anxiety create a palpable physiological response. Our muscles tense, our heart rate climbs, our breathing becomes shallow. A genuine laugh, even a small chuckle, acts as a circuit breaker for this stress response. It forces a deep exhale, relaxes the muscles in your face and shoulders, and signals to your nervous system that the perceived threat is not, in fact, an emergency. We see this skill in the best leaders and negotiators who can deftly use a light comment to ease a tense stalemate in a boardroom or a difficult conversation at home. It's not about making jokes at someone else's expense, which is a form of aggression, but about finding the shared human silliness in a fraught situation. It's the difference between shouting at a child who has spilled an entire gallon of milk on the freshly cleaned floor and taking a deep breath, looking at the comical white river spreading across the tiles and saying with a wry smile, "Well, I guess the floor was looking a bit thirsty." The mess still needs to be cleaned, but the emotional charge has been neutralized, replaced by a sense of shared challenge rather than blame. The Stoic use of humor is ultimately a profound act of acceptance. It is the opposite of cynical sarcasm, which often comes from a place of bitterness and resistance. Stoic humor arises from a peaceful understanding that the world is imperfect, unpredictable, and frequently absurd, and that our best response is to navigate it with a light heart and a calm mind. It is the laughter of someone who has tried to control the uncontrollable, recognized the folly in that effort, and decided to chuckle at themselves instead of raging against the universe. By learning to laugh at life's minor irritations, at unexpected setbacks, and especially at our own earnest attempts to impose order on chaos, we don't diminish our strength or our seriousness of purpose. We enhance it. We prove to ourselves that our peace is so resilient that not even a crashed computer or a spilled gallon of milk can truly threaten it. This gentle, intelligent laughter is the sound of emotional mastery, a clear signal that you are no longer a victim of circumstances but an amused observer who is always ready to find a way forward. Think of the most anxious you've ever felt, maybe before a major job interview, a crucial presentation, or an important first date. Where was your mind focused? Chances are it was locked onto the desired outcome, getting the job, receiving applause, securing a second date. That fixation on a result you cannot guarantee is a recipe for emotional turmoil. This brings us to the 20-second Stoic lesson, a profound shift in focus that can liberate you from that anxiety. Dedicate your entire effort to the process and completely detach from the outcome. The Stoics argued that the only thing that is truly, unequivocally good is a virtuous effort, the quality of your own actions, your intentions, and your choices. The result of those actions, however, is not in your control. You can prepare the most brilliant interview answers, but you cannot control if another candidate has a personal connection to the hiring manager. You can deliver a flawless presentation, but you cannot force your audience to be impressed. You can be kind and engaging on a date, but you cannot mandate another person's attraction. When you tether your sense of success and self-worth to these external outcomes, you hand over your emotional stability to fate. You become reactive, swinging between the highs of achievement and the crushing lows of failure, forever at the mercy of events you cannot command. This philosophy finds a perfect modern analogy in the world of elite sports. Consider a professional basketball player stepping up to the free throw line with 1 second left on the clock and their team down by 1 point. The entire game rests on these 2 shots. A reactive, outcome-focused mindset would be catastrophic here. the player would be thinking about the millions of people watching, the disappointment of their teammates, the jeers of the crowd if they miss, the glory if they make it. This immense pressure tenses the muscles, clouds the mind, and dramatically increases the chance of failure. The Stoic player, however, has trained themselves to focus exclusively on the process. Their entire world narrows to the familiar, controllable actions. The feel of the ball seems in their fingers, the bend of their knees, the smooth, consistent motion of their shooting arm, the follow-through. They have practiced this exact shot 10,000 times. The outcome, whether the ball goes in, is now a secondary concern, a byproduct of executing the process correctly. By detaching from the scoreboard, they actually maximize their chance of succeeding on it. This is the paradox of process. By letting go of the need to win, you often perform well enough to win. We can see this same principle operating in the world of business and creativity. A talented author writing a novel cannot control whether it becomes a bestseller. That depends on the whims of the market, the timing of its release, and the subjective tastes of critics and readers. If the author writes with the bestseller list as their primary goal, every sentence becomes fraught with pressure. They might second-guess their voice, chase trends, and become crippled by anxiety, ultimately producing a work that feels inauthentic and strained. The Stoic author, however, focuses on the process. Their goal is to write the most honest, well-crafted story they are capable of, one paragraph at a time. They find joy and fulfillment in the daily discipline of showing up at their desk, in the meticulous work of refining a chapter, in the integrity of their creative effort. The publication and reception of the book become separate events outside the realm of their craft. This approach not only produces better art, but also protects the artist from the emotional whiplash of public opinion. Applying this to our daily lives requires a conscious reframing of our goals. Instead of setting an outcome-based goal like get a promotion, set a process-based goal like I will consistently deliver high-quality work, proactively look for ways to add value, and seek constructive feedback each month. The promotion is not yours to give yourself, it is a decision made by others, but the process of being an excellent, engaged employee is entirely within your power. You can execute that process perfectly every single day, and in doing so, you can feel a sense of accomplishment and integrity regardless of the eventual outcome. If the promotion comes, it is a welcome affirmation. If it doesn't, you have not failed. You have still succeeded in your mission to act with excellence, and that success is a permanent part of your character, something no missed promotion can ever take away. This mindset transforms you from a passive hopeful, waiting for external validation into an active agent of your own virtue, finding deep and lasting satisfaction in the quality of your effort itself. But beyond a philosophical reframe or a mental exercise, the Stoics understood that emotional reactivity is not just a thought pattern, it is a physical event happening in your body. When that harsh email arrives or that critical comment lands, it triggers an immediate biological cascade. Your heart rate spikes, your muscles tense, your breath becomes shallow and rapid. This is your sympathetic nervous system launching a full-scale fight or flight response, hijacking your higher brain functions before you even have a chance to think. The 23rd lesson addresses this physical reality directly, offering a tool so simple and portable it's almost deceptively powerful. This is the practice of mindful breathing, a way to use your own breath as a lever to manually override your body's panic button and reclaim control. The Stoics didn't use the modern term mindful breathing, but they practiced a form of focused attention that served the same purpose. They called it prosarche, a state of vigilant awareness. In moments of tension, they would turn their attention inward to the most fundamental rhythm of life itself, the breath. This wasn't about achieving a blissful state of relaxation, it was a tactical intervention. By consciously slowing and deepening the breath, they were sending a direct physiological countercommand to their aroused nervous system, signaling that the perceived emergency was over. They were creating a crucial pocket of space, a buffer zone between the initial shock of a stimulus and their chosen response, ensuring that their actions came from reason, not reflex. The mechanism behind this is not mystical, it's rooted in straightforward biology. Your breath is uniquely connected to your autonomic nervous system, which regulates involuntary functions like heart rate and digestion. While this system is mostly automatic, the breath is its one controllable element. When you are stressed, your breathing becomes rapid and chest-focused. By deliberately shifting to slow, deep, diaphragmatic breaths, breathing deeply into your belly, you actively stimulate your vagus nerve. This nerve is the command center of your parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and digest counterweight to fight or flight. Activating it through deep breathing triggers a cascade of calming effects. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure decreases, and stress hormones like cortisol begin to drop. In essence, you are physically convincing your body that it is safe, which in turn allows your mind to clear and regain its footing. Let's make this practical. Imagine you've just received a message that feels like a personal attack. Your face flushes, your thoughts start to race, and you feel the urge to fire off a defensive reply. This is the critical moment to deploy the breath. Before you type a single word, you consciously place your hand on your stomach. You inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4, feeling your belly expand like a balloon. You hold that breath for a count of 4, allowing the oxygen to circulate. Then you exhale even more slowly through your mouth for a count of 6, feeling your belly deflate. You repeat this cycle just 3 or 4 times. This entire process takes less than 60 seconds, but its impact is transformative. The physiological arousal lessens. The mental fog begins to clear. That urgent, compelling need to react immediately starts to feel less like a command and more like a suggestion you are now empowered to evaluate rationally. This practice transforms the breath from an unconscious function into a deliberate anchor to the present moment. In the midst of an emotional storm, your breath is always there with you, a steady and reliable rhythm you can return to. It grounds you in the reality of your body, right here and now, instead of letting your mind spiral into catastrophic future scenarios or ruminations on the past. It's the ultimate Stoic tool because it is always available, requires no equipment, and works instantly. Whether you're about to enter a difficult conversation, are stuck in frustrating traffic, or are wrestling with anxiety about an upcoming event, your breath is a lever of control you can always pull to slow the world down just enough for your wisdom to catch up. It is the physical embodiment of the pause, the first and most vital step in ensuring your next move is a choice, not a chain reaction. Now, consider how often we interact with people not as complete human beings, but as functions or obstacles. The barista is just the hand that gives us coffee. The driver who cuts us off is merely an impediment in our path. The colleague who sends a terse email is simply a source of irritation. We see their actions, but we are blind to the vast, complex humanity behind them. This dehumanization is the fertile ground where reactive anger and judgment instantly take root. The 24th Stoic lesson asks us to actively reverse this process, to consciously reconnect with the full humanity of every single person we encounter, especially those who test our patience. This practice of seeing others as fellow humans with their own intricate battles and burdens is one of the most powerful and immediate ways to dissolve conflict before it even begins. The Stoics called this Sympatheia, a profound sense of interconnectedness and shared fate with all rational beings. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this in his private writings, urging himself to see past people's irritating behaviors to their common humanity. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil." This wasn't a cynical statement, it was a compassionate one. He was preparing himself to meet their flaws not with reciprocal anger but with understanding. He recognized that harmful actions almost always spring from a place of internal ignorance or pain, not from a targeted desire to be evil. A person who is truly wise and at peace with themselves does not lash out, lie, or seek to belittle others. Therefore, when someone acts poorly, the Stoic response is not to mirror their behavior, but to recognize it as a symptom of their own internal struggle, their own failure to understand what is truly good. Let's bring this into a modern scenario we all know too well: road rage. Someone swerves dangerously close to your car. The immediate animal brain reaction is to see them as an anonymous villain, a malicious other who has personally threatened you. This story triggers a surge of adrenaline and fury. But what if you applied the Stoic lens? What if you forced yourself to see the driver not as a cartoonish villain, but as a full human being? Perhaps they are a parent who just received a panicked phone call from their child's school and are driving distractedly, their mind clouded with fear. Maybe they are a young driver having a mechanical issue with their car, terrified and making mistakes. Or perhaps they are simply having the worst day of their life, consumed by a personal tragedy you cannot see. This shift in perspective doesn't excuse the dangerous driving, but it completely transforms your emotional reaction to it. The personal insult is removed. Your anger, which requires a malicious intent to fuel it, has nothing to latch onto and begins to dissipate, replaced by a more neutral caution or even a flicker of concern. You are no longer in a personal battle. You are just one human being navigating around another human being who is clearly struggling. This practice is incredibly effective in the workplace as well. That manager who is always critical and micromanaging, it's easy to label them a control freak and simmer with resentment. But what if you considered that their behavior might stem from a deep-seated insecurity and a fear of failure that they themselves cannot manage? They are not a monster, they are a frightened person acting out of that fear. This understanding doesn't mean you tolerate abuse, but it allows you to respond to their behavior strategically and calmly, rather than reacting with defensive anger. You can address the situation without making it a personal war, because you see the flawed human behind the title. This capacity for compassionate perspective is the absolute cornerstone of emotional intelligence and effective leadership. Ultimately, this lesson is about recognizing the universal human condition. Every single person you meet is fighting a hard battle you know nothing about. They are carrying insecurities, heartaches, pressures, and private pains that dictate their behavior in ways that are invisible to you. To judge them solely on their momentary action without any context for their internal world is a profound failure of imagination and empathy. The Stoic practice of seeing others as fellow humans is an active exercise of that imagination. It is the deliberate decision to grant others the same complex inner life that you know you possess. When you do this, patience naturally replaces judgment. A sense of shared fragility replaces isolating anger. You begin to move through the world not as a central character surrounded by bit players who exist to help or hinder you, but as one member of a vast, struggling, and beautiful human tribe, all doing our best with the burdens we carry, all deserving of a basic level of compassion, especially on our worst days. And so we arrive at the final, and in many ways the ultimate lesson that binds all the others together, the Stoic ideal to live according to nature. This phrase can sound abstract at first, perhaps even a little vague, but its meaning is the very heart of the entire philosophy and the key to a life free from emotional turbulence. For the Stoics, nature didn't just mean the physical world of trees and rivers. They meant human nature, the unique, defining characteristic of a human being, which is our capacity for reason. To live according to nature is to live a life guided by rational thought and virtue, rather than being tossed around by irrational passions and desires. It is to use our highest faculty, our reason, to navigate the world with wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline. When we do this, we are living in harmony with our true selves, and this alignment is the very source of tranquility. Think of it like a master craftsman using their finest tool for its intended purpose. A master carpenter doesn't use their sharpest chisel to pry open a paint can. They use it for delicate, precise work because that is what it was designed to do. When they use it correctly, the tool performs beautifully and lasts a lifetime. Our rational mind is that finest tool. Using it to fuel jealousy, to nurse grudges, to invent catastrophic fantasies about the future, or to rage against traffic is like using that chisel to open a can. It's a misuse that dulls the blade and causes damage. But when we use our reason to discern what is good, to understand what we can control, to practice empathy, and to choose virtuous actions, we are using our tool for its highest purpose. This correct use feels natural, fluid, and right. It doesn't create internal friction. The emotional reactivity, the anxiety, the anger, the frustration is simply the sound of that tool being misused, grinding against the grain of our own nature. Now consider how every single lesson we've explored is a practical instruction manual for this very purpose. The dichotomy of control is the foundational act of reason, sorting the world into what we can work with and what we must accept. Negative visualization is reason preparing the mind for reality, strengthening it against future shocks. The view from above is reason providing desperately needed perspective, shrinking problems to their true size. Amor Fati is reason embracing reality entirely, transforming every event into fuel for growth. Voluntary discomfort is reason building resilience through direct experience. The discipline of assent is reason acting as a vigilant gatekeeper for the mind. The obstacle is the way is reason finding the opportunity hidden inside every barrier. Sympatheia is reason recognizing our shared humanity and dissolving petty judgments. Memento Mori is reason instilling urgency and gratitude by acknowledging our finite time. Guarding your inner citadel is reason fortifying your peace through daily practices. Restraint in speech is reason choosing purposeful silence over reactive noise. Defining your enough is reason declaring independence from endless wanting. Following role models is reason seeking a blueprint for virtuous action. Examining your impressions is reason dissecting and disarming distorted thoughts. Cultivating gratitude is reason directing attention toward abundance. Breaking the addiction to opinion is reason building an internal source of worth. Finding joy in the effort itself is reason deriving satisfaction from virtuous action. The evening review is reason conducting its daily audit for continuous growth. Using humor is reason finding levity in life's absurdities. Focusing on process is reason dedicating energy to controllable actions. Mindful breathing is reason calming the body to reclaim the mind. And seeing the humanity in others is reason fostering empathy and dissolving conflict. This isn't a random collection of tips, it is a complete interlocking system. Each practice supports and reinforces the others, all flowing from the central command to live a life of virtue according to our rational nature. When you make this your aim, a remarkable shift occurs. You stop asking, how can I feel less anxious? How can I be less angry? Those questions are still focused on the symptoms. Instead, you start asking, what is the rational thing to do here? What is the courageous action? What is the kind response? What is the wise perspective? You focus on the virtue, and the tranquility follows as a natural byproduct. The goal is not to eliminate emotion, but to ensure your emotions are informed by reason rather than overthrowing it. You will still feel the initial sting of an insult or the sudden jolt of bad news, but that feeling will not be allowed to dictate your next move. Your rational mind, trained by these practices, will step in to examine the impression, place it in its proper context, and choose a response that aligns with your character. This is the promise of Stoicism. A reactive-free life is not a life devoid of feeling. It is a life of profound emotional maturity and stability. It is the result of having built a self that is rooted in virtue, resilient to fortune, and compassionate towards others. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that no matter what the world throws at you, you have the tools and the character to handle it with grace. You are no longer fighting against reality. You are dancing with it, using reason as your guide and virtue as your steps. You are finally living according to your nature. And so we've journeyed together through 25 timeless Stoic lessons, each one a vital instrument for building your own personal toolkit for emotional mastery. We began by learning to sort the world with the dichotomy of control, understanding where our true power lies. We then strengthened our minds by mentally preparing for hardship through negative visualization and gaining profound perspective with the view from above. We learned the radical acceptance of Amor Fati, to not just accept but love our fate, and we built resilience by voluntarily embracing manageable discomfort. We explored the crucial discipline of assent, becoming vigilant gatekeepers of our own minds, and we reframed every barrier by seeing the obstacle is the way. We expanded our sense of connection to all of humanity through Sympatheia and gained urgent clarity by remembering our mortality with Memento Mori. We fortified our inner peace by guarding our inner citadel and practiced the powerful restraint of choosing mindful silence over reactive speech. We found liberation by defining our enough, breaking the cycle of endless wanting, and we sought guidance from the wisdom of role models. We learned to examine our impressions, dissecting our automatic thoughts, and we cultivated a heart of gratitude to appreciate the abundance already present in our lives. We broke our addiction to opinion, building an internal source of self-worth, and we discovered that true joy is found not in outcomes but in the integrity of our own effort. We made growth a daily ritual with the evening review and found levity in life's absurdities with a well-timed sense of humor. We focused our energy on the controllable process, detaching from unpredictable outcomes, and we used the simple, powerful tool of mindful breathing to calm our bodies and reclaim our mind. We dissolved conflict by seeing the humanity in others, recognizing the shared struggles behind every action, and we integrated it all by striving to live according to nature, using our reason to guide a life of virtue. This isn't a philosophy meant to be absorbed all at once. The true power lies in choosing just one of these tools and putting it to work in your daily life. Perhaps start with the foundational practice of the dichotomy of control, consciously sorting your challenges into what you can influence and what you must accept. Or maybe begin your day with a moment of negative visualization, mentally reviewing what you cherish to ignite a deeper appreciation for the present. The path to emotional mastery is built one deliberate choice, one practiced pause at a time. I would love to hear which lesson resonates most with you right now. Share your experiences and insights in the comments below. Let's learn from each other's journeys. And if you're ready to continue building a life of greater peace, resilience, and purpose, consider subscribing for more practical wisdom on living the Stoic way. Thank you for investing this time in your own growth.